Welcome to Nav Chat, the show for the New Zealand orienteering and navigation sports community.
Morning, Tom. How are you?
Good. How are you, Gene?
Yeah, I'm good. We had Queen's birthday earlier this month. Seems like a while ago now, but that was my first big orienteering thing in quite a while. So I think I am in a different space compared to when we talked last time, because last month I was still unsure about whether I was injured or not and hadn't done any orienteering for ages. So I feel like I'm back in action, and that taster of pure orienteering at Queen's birthday was highly motivating. And I'm really excited to all the orienteering things that are coming up for the rest of the year. So I'm definitely in a different space to where we were last time.
Sweet, good news. I didn't make it down to Queen's birthday, obviously. I was at work, but I heard some good things. It sounded like it was some pretty nice terrain, some good races, and it was great. I was a bit surprised to see your name there in the results.
Yeah, so was I, actually, and I didn't enter the sprints. So, I mean, that's how confident I was with my injury recovery. I only entered half the races.
Did you think all the extra talking we've been doing about orienteering, do you think that flowed through to your navigation at all?
Yeah, it does. It does help to keep things coming to the surface. And I do want to talk about this further in depth, the middle distance, and how I could see some like glimmers of hope for me in the middle distance, which is forever the hardest discipline for me. And there were things that we've been talking about, and I think I'm learning from myself as a coach. I say things to other people that I can barely do myself, and the more I say them, the more I actually do them as well. So I know what I have to do. It's really hard to do.
Do as I say, not do as I do.
That's definitely been the case. Yeah.
You mentioned middle distance, and I reckon one way to get better at orienteering has always been to think about course setting. You spoke to a setter of a very enjoyable middle distance course from national champs when it was down in Wellington. I think you had a catch up with Yvette Baker, one of New Zealand's legends of the sport.
Yeah, I did. I talked to Yvette Baker about her course setting for the New Zealand middle distance champs that was held last year in Waitarere Forest, and I found it really interesting talking to her. So let's have a look. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How are you doing?
Cool. Yeah, I'm doing well. Hey, thanks for coming on. Tom and I are keen to hear a little bit about middle distance course setting from the perspective of a course planner, and see if they can square that with their perspective as the runner who has to take on the challenges that you set for them. So I'm going to bring up the map here. This is a map from New Zealand champs last year. And you were the course setter of the middle distance, this very course.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Cool. Do you want me to, do you want to take it from here and explain what middle distance means to you and what the objectives are for you as the course planner?
Yeah, sure. If I just say ramble on, and you can interject, as when necessary. So middle distance for me is all about getting it right 100%, and doing it at speed. Right? Getting the navigation right 100% and doing it at speed, because if you make a 2-minute mistake in the middle, you've lost it. Whereas sometimes in a long race you can catch up 2 minutes if you mess up. So often a middle distance, if you go really slowly, you could get it right all the way. So it's all about throwing every technique you've got so that you get every control perfectly. And that's what a middle distance is about for me. Quite short, so you can really actually push it as hard as you can. Obviously, different age groups and things. When I say fast, I mean as fast as you can for yourself. And that will tie. It doesn't matter how fast it actually is, but if it's going as fast as you can go and tiring you out, it then makes the orienteering really tricky.
Cool. Yeah, I'm getting a sense of no room for error compared to longer races. Yeah.
And then I plan a middle the way I like to run them, or the sort of courses I like to run. So I like a middle where you're constantly on the move, where you're moving fast. So I don't particularly like having to thrash through heavy green. So if I can make it as runnable as possible, I will do. And just that constant change in speed as well. So I'll put in some longer, easier legs where you just get running, and then some really technical as you can for the forest you've got. Often technical when you're a little bit tired, so maybe at the end of a course or after a couple of long legs in the middle of the course, that sort of thing. And then obviously changing directions to spice it up, to keep you constantly having to think which way am I going out of this control, rather than just bumbling along sort of thing. So it's more, I love the middle distance and the fact that you just have to be really focused the whole way around, and have to be pre-planning everything you're doing.
Yeah, so, I'm seeing a bit of that come out in the first few controls of this course. So some change in direction, and it's quite a big variation in leg length as well. So let's just swing through these sections of the course quickly. Sure. And what are your thinking? How would you describe these first few?
So I'll just start by saying originally we'd had this course starting over near where number 5 is, and then we were going to go around clockwise. So sort of down there, and we were going to go around clockwise. So the control sites we've got would generally planned for the clockwise rotation.
Okay.
So then this whole block just below number 1 was felled, and that completely messed up everything we were going to do. We were going to run everyone through there, so we couldn't do that. So anyway, so that's one, and that first block where 1 and 2 are, were not perfect, but I think we did the best we could do in there. So first control, just something just to read, just a little bit technical. If you took that slowly, it's really easy. It's on the top of the hill, and it's just over the top and just the other side.
Down.
Yeah, but if you rushed at it without thinking too much, you could end up down any side of the hill, down on the path, like that.
Yeah.
And then you'd miss it, because of course they're those little in Oscilia, those little niches in the terrain. The controls can be quite tucked in, so you can miss them quite easily. So more just, if you took that slowly, it'd be really easy. If you rushed out of the start, you could miss it. So just to focus everyone, let's take it. Be focused right from the start.
That's quite different to 3 and 4. 3 and 4 is very short, and there's nothing terribly big to save the orienteer.
No, exactly. So 3, one of the things I do when I plan a course is I put a route on a map and run around looking for nice control sites. So 3, I was just a beautiful control site. I just really liked it.
So you found it in the terrain before you decided on the map?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So what I tend to do is I sort of plan a rough course for usually for the elites, because it's the longer course, and then I go around, and on that route I'll be looking at other places as I'm running around to say, oh, that's a really cute control site, oh, that would work, and some things that I've thought, oh yeah, that's a good control site, when you get there it's like, no, that's not going to work. And so
what reasons might the control sites not work for you?
Often if it was like the first control, if it's a little niche on the map and you think, oh, that's really nice, and then you get there and it's basically not really there, or if when you get there you think the contours aren't quite right around it, and so it's not. I don't like using control sites if I don't think they're fair. That's even more so if you're in the green than if you're out in the open.
I imagine some of these ones could easily just have a bunch of branches just obscuring where you put the control, and it's just no fun sending the orienteers into the mess.
Exactly. And sometimes if I still really like a control site and it's got a bunch of branches, I'll go out and break a few off and things to make them more accessible.
Commitment for the orienteer.
So that's 3 and 4, and that area 3 and 4, if you just go up, that's a really beautiful bit of forest. So that's the only bit of Osciliath which isn't heavy sandy pine needles on the ground. So it's really nice running. It's actually, and so really nice, really fast, but also that little change in visibility with the green clumps here and there. So you have to be really focused on following your direction safely to actually make those controls perfect.
Yeah. And that contrast from 3 to 4 and then a longer one to 5.
Yeah.
There's a lot of contrast there, because 5 is quite simple as a leg, but there's, do you consider that to be some choice? Do you expect some people to go out to the sand?
No, not really. If you sort of look to see where we went, it's more a case of getting people through that section of the forest.
So it's just not the greatest area for course setting.
No, not through that bit. We sent the elites through the green with all the crosses in it. Yeah, all of that. And I wasn't about to send anyone other than the elites through there, because it's tough. It's tough running. So I had to send everyone else through the white bit. So that's really why. Number 6 was a beautiful control site. And we didn't have many courses going through there just because of sort of the angles. But that's almost why number 5 was where it was, to lead people in to run that way. And it's all really, you have to slow down heaps. So that 5 to 6, you run hard. If you carried on running hard, it's really easy to miss. So it's that whole forcing people to change speed.
I think there's a similar thing going on with 7 or 8. You've not only there might be some spectator energy also rubbing off on you, and the navigation is a bit easier. So you're coming into 7 overcooked, and now you've got a lot of quite technical orienteering to do. So
that's exactly right, Jean. Yeah. 7's sort of basically getting you away from the track system and the spectators. And 8 is not so simple if you just run off without looking. Really good leg where you sort of all about looking up and actually the direction you're going to. Yeah, exactly, to see what you see. And although the mistakes you're going to make are not big, in a middle, if you lose a minute, it's a minute, and it's a big deal. So that was quite a nice little leg, and that then just led into that last little bit. Again, you could do that last bit really slowly and get it spot on. If you speed up a bit, you've got to really simplify it and use those simplification skills to do it. So definitely, for me, the way to come into 9 is to know exactly where you are, sort of for your pre-attack point. When you come off, you see where you come off the road, there's a yellow bit with a depression in it. Yep, just there. Yep. So there, and then following, almost going directly west all the way through those yellow bits with the depressions, or west and south a bit, or south a bit.
Oh yeah. Through those ones.
Down there. Yeah. So if you follow through that way, you'll come in quite nicely to the control.
But any moment that you're hasty, if you're hasty through here, then you're dead. That's very tricky. So these ones are very much about simplification. You can make them easy if you pick out the right features, go slowly, or go at the right pace. And you know what we mean by, you don't have to go slowly, but you have to be thinking in that sort of slow running fashion of finding those controls. And then just that little bit 9, 10, 11 should be, if you're going slow enough, then that should be quite simple. They're not very far away from each other, so people shouldn't be overshooting, but they will do. And then coming around to 12, that's a tricky control. Yeah, this is terrifying me.
But there's lots of ways of doing that. So, and it depends. It's almost like what's good for you. Do you want to go almost out to the road and run through the white? Do you want to pick up the yellow and run through the yellow and pick off the green blobs as you go through? Do you actually want to go into the light green and just run north, and you'll actually come to the control that way? It's slow, but you'll also do it that way. So there's quite a variation of what you do there. And that's a nice safe way. That's picking up the yellow. You could go that way. I generally wouldn't.
Yeah. The road is faster and the same distance probably.
Yeah.
Looking for something as a lifeline in there is so important. It looks really tough.
Yeah, exactly. And that's sort of what I and then 13, I like to have a sort of last control, which is safe. Let's just get ourselves out to the last control and finish, sort of thing. So it's still not easy to get or to do it quickly. People lose time on that sort of leg because it's not easy running. So just doing it quickly and not deviating off the line and things.
It's amazing the complacency that comes down at the end when you just want to be finished.
So that's that was quite a nice course out of all the ones that I planned for, especially for one of the shorter ones. But for me it's about you challenge as a runner. You're racing against the planner, and so as a planner you're challenging the runner to get it right. You don't want them to mess it up. You actually want them to achieve, and you want them to do it really well, but you want to make it really challenging for them.
Yeah, they have to earn it, but it is possible to earn it if they're paying attention.
So
cool. Well, thank you very much, Yvette, for showing us through this course and sharing your insight.
You're really welcome.
Great. That was great to hear some background on a course that I know I really enjoyed running. I thought that terrain we had for that middle distance was quite a small, funny shaped area. And it was really interesting to hear Yvette's process around setting, especially dealing with the adversity of having the area change not far out from the event. What were some of the things you pulled out from that, Jean?
The biggest surprise to me was to hear that she might get a vague idea of where the courses are going. And then the next step is to go out on the terrain and actually look for some interesting control sites and see how they could be pieced together. That was a surprise. Not that I think it's a bad idea, but I just haven't actually heard of many other people doing that. So that was cool to hear that there were some different ways of going about it. I tend to do it the other way, where I try to set the perfect course and then go out there and inevitably find that, as Yvette mentioned, a number of my control sites are not up to scratch. And then you have to move them around. Then you hunt around for something that works.
I guess everyone, as with lots of the parts of orienteering, there are many ways to skin a cat, and there are lots of different ways to do the different parts that the sport requires. I think a big positive, which I probably take away from that, is if you're going and running around the course, you've got another opportunity to go for a run in the terrain. I think that sometimes when you're out there busy checking control sites and that sort of thing, can sometimes seem like a little bit of a drag. But even if you add in that extra step of trying running through the terrain to see what the flow's like with a vague idea of a course, you can get another really interesting session out of setting an orienteering event. Yeah,
that's true. It should be fun for the course planners as well.
Another interesting thing I thought Yvette talked about was how she doesn't want all controls to be about 100% difficulty. Some of I guess you could think of this in lots of different ways. You might have your transitional legs to get from one interesting area to the other, or you might have a leg for setting up a particular route choice that you want to have. But I was thinking that that's a really important thing to note, especially when you're beginning to set courses, that you don't have to go for 100% difficulty the whole time.
Yeah, and I think I'd clarify that by saying there should still be a purpose in every leg. So we don't want a dumb leg that you're like, I can't really be bothered finding a way to make this work. I'll just have some track running. It's that in the middle distance, not every course has to be maximum contour detail and the tightest control site. You can have a leg that has more of a route choice aspect or more of a high speed compass aspect than extremely high detailed map reading aspect.
Now course setting's another part of orienteering that goes best with an example to talk about. So I think you've got an area ready and queued up for us to have a bit of a talk about, and why don't you run me through what you're doing in your setting process in a way that someone who's maybe not set before or has an event coming up that they're thinking about setting or would like to try, a way that they can see what you're thinking as you do it.
Yeah, let's have a quick look. So I've just chosen a fairly random area from Whittle Forest in Auckland. I haven't chosen the best area. I think it's just a mediocre area. A lot of it's failed, so it's pretty restricted in where you can go. Reminds me, of many other sand dune maps that are quite slim, and so you don't have like the run of the roost to be able to put controls wherever you'd like. So I've decided that.
Let's say right now, so let's say you've found out you're sitting on this map in a month's time. What's the first thing you do? Do you open the map up and have a look around, or do you go to the terrain?
I have a look around. Usually it's an area I'm kind of familiar with anyway, if you're doing course sitting for your local club. Yeah, and I like to see the areas that are most detailed and also have a lot of trails on them as well.
Okay, so you go and you grab the map, you go and have a check out, and then so we've gone past that point, and you kind of know the area a little bit. We've sat down, you've opened up your file on Purple Pen, and we're going to have a crack at setting a course.
That's right. So I'm thinking like I'm just going to choose a fairly nominal start, just the end of this trail here. Hopefully you can see that.
So are we setting, what are we, first of all, so what are we setting here? Are we setting a red, yellow, orange, white?
So I'm going for a red level training. So somebody who's thinking that they're doing middle distance races with the awareness that middle distance is tough and you have to read the contours and there's a lot going on and there's a lot of scheduling activities going on in your head also in the middle distance. And I want to set a training that takes some of those points that Yvette mentioned about the change in leg length and the change in direction. And as the person doing the training, I want to be able to practice those challenges in a lower pressure environment. I don't want racing to be my only time I ever practice changing leg length and changing direction.
All right, so this is going to be a training that captures lots of the things in a middle distance course, but might not have the whole of course structure that Yvette talked about.
That's definitely right. Like, the overall course structure might not be beautiful at the end of this, but each leg will have a purpose that helps me train better for middle distance. So,
let's start with our first example.
Off the bat, small depression, not too close to the trail, not too close to any other features. There's that vegetation boundary that you can use. And now I'm going from one small contour feature to another in a very short leg. So I've got to be really on top of my game to get those two smoothly. Again, I'm just looking for something small that doesn't have a trail going to it, essentially. And if I do have to cross a trail, then I want to cross it at more like 90 degrees. So I think I'm going to go for like a short, then a long, then a short, then a long kind of style on this particular training. And you can see I'm always choosing small but distinctive control sites, because when I get there, I want to know it's the right point and then move on.
Okay, so you're thinking of a red level training and middle distance, and the first thing you're wanting to pick out is you're wanting to really hone in on that recognition of small features, followed up with rapid direction change to identify another small feature.
That's exactly right. So you can see this little template that I'm following on this particular training exercise.
Do you think you'd ever set a course like this? Like, say you were having an event here and this was going to be a club event. Do you think you'd ever have a course like this?
Not like this. I'm doing something that's kind of interesting for training. This isn't, I wouldn't really be happy to set a training course.
Why wouldn't you?
It's a harder question to answer, because it is going to be fun. But I think there's an expectation when you do get up to an orienteering course that it does touch all bases, and you do get a course that has some of these elements, but also has a chance to do some longer legs, and maybe you have 4 controls that are close in a row and then a number of long ones in a row. So fitting yourself to, I think, a repetitive template closes you off to a lot of the other challenges that you should be presenting to the orienteer. But there's also a case to be made that not every orienteering race should be fit to the template of what a championship should be. And we should be able to play around with these more varied approaches. But it is often that if you just go for the most interesting and well-rounded course, it doesn't end up being such a specific kind of training exercise like this.
Okay, cool. So I see there's a change now. We've gone from 2 controls. Now you've gone to like these sort of more middle length leagues. What are you trying to do?
So I compromised there because there was a trail and I didn't want to put a control too close to the trail. That's
okay. So you're trying to preserve difficulty and you're prioritizing difficulty over that template. Okay, all right.
Yeah, just in that particular instance. And we're going again, a distinctive control feature.
Relatively distinctive control feature, I guess.
Yeah, totally. So by non-distinctive, I mean like putting something. I mean, maybe that thing is just kind of vague when you get there.
Yeah, you want a fair control feature that you can identify. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a bit wishy-washy. Like that's obviously going to be, I mean, a vague spur. Well, I'm not sure. You're going to be faffing around, just not really being that precise. But when you find this depression, it should be very obvious.
Okay. So I guess one thing that this shows is how easy it is once you've got the map and purple pen to draw together some controls onto a map, and have what looks like what would be a pretty challenging training session. You've got one skill that you've worked on here. What would you do now if I said, when say we were going to run this session, I said I wanted to try some practice on my compass? What would you do to complement what you've already drawn in, but then still meet that goal that I've got of wanting to do some compass work?
Yeah. If there was an emphasis on compass work, I might have made some of the legs a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. But it is still quite good that on these straighter legs, I might say at the start of every straight leg, every longer leg, you've got to spend a little bit more time getting the compass bearing perfect, and you have to do the longer legs perfectly straight. Mm-hmm. That could be one way where you change the habits that you're using when you're out on course to meet that particular goal. My personal style is to pick one particular technique and push it really hard in this exercise, and then afterwards, the second half of the training might be compass focused.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. So do it in 2 different sessions. Okay, so let's say, just in the interest of moving things along, let's say you've done these controls 12. You're going to finish just down from 12. How do you get this from where it is now? How can you get this out as something printed that you can take with you? What's the next step?
Yeah, so in Purple Pen, there's always a print area that is being defined that you set up when you start. So you can see the dark gray, and you can change the print area in Purple Pen. Maybe I center it a little bit, and we can also change its scale. Okay,
your scale is changeable, but we can easily adjust the print area, and then we just print and map out, and we've got our training. Yeah, there we go, 1 to 7,500. We've got our printed A4 training map ready to go with a session that has taken all of 5 minutes to draw up on a map. And you could do this with Purple Pen, you can use a PDF, right? So you could do this with a scan of an old map or any sort of map file that you've got. Obviously bearing in mind, of course, all the access issues and making sure it's a public access area you're using, and not jeopardizing anything for the club. But an old map like this, or an urban map or something like that, you can really easily make a session like this and print it to organize it yourself.
Yep, Purple Pen's really useful. And if you have local areas, then I guess talk to your club about how best they can be used for training, and they should take it all on a case-by-case basis. some areas are open to the public and some are not. So your club will know
This is also interesting for course setting, and following on from what Yvette said, and I know I've done this a couple of times myself. Sometimes if you jump on and just throw a really quick course, just like you have on a piece of terrain, so that when you go out there to check it out, you've got a map in hand that you're interacting with in a way that a competitor might. That can make it a little bit easier to relate to the actual course setting process rather than just having a blank map to run around with.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. And I think you can get stuck course setting also. And you just need to get something on paper and go out there, and then the juices start flowing. And being stuck at home looking at some unsatisfactory course you've set and not seeing a way to improve it can really burn a lot of time. And it might just be best to just do something that is like, I know you're not satisfied with it first time, but then get out there and give it a run round, give it a test, and I think you'll find some ideas come from that.
Cool. So have you got, that's a good intro to setting trainings and using Purple Pen. Have you got any resources that you can point people to if they're wanting to get started with trying Purple Pen?
We've done one tutorial that I'll link to that goes with the setup a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. And Purple Pen's free to download, right?
Yep, Purple Pen's free. So the link will be in the description, and give it a go. Even if it's just to practice, get a map off your local club to play with. Start with a sprint map. Easy peasy.
Cool. So we've heard from Yvette. We've heard what her process is for setting a course. We've heard a bit from you about how to set up a training and doing it in Purple Pen. Shall we jump across to our monthly discussion? And we've got some areas of interest to talk about.
Yeah, first up, I stumbled across firstly, this continues to interest me, the LiDAR mapping that different places are doing on around the world. I've had my computer here working for the past month, producing more LiDAR maps. So if you are out there with a spare computer sitting around at home, talk to Cameron Delisle from Northwest Orienteering Club, because he can give you the link that you can then just click on, and your computer will start making the LiDAR maps of New Zealand.
Bitcoin mining for orienteers with no financial payoff.
Basically, you get kudos paid off. And
so what's this map we've got here? This
is Sweden. They're on the buzz, of course. They have created. There's two types of maps that they've got in Sweden. They do have the whole map, the whole country, with this very basic kind of map that has.
Can we zoom in a little bit? Because this is just, we're looking at Sweden on a satellite scale.
So they've still used the orienteering symbols in this.
Yep.
And you can see the tracks and stuff. It's all very readable. So that's quite cool that the general population has access to a whole country map, vague as it is, but with orienteering-like symbols. And now they're cranking with the laser, the LiDAR mapping. And we'll see how this loads. So then this is what the new level of detail looks like once they're using the computer processing on some modern LiDAR data. And they've got an orienteering map. It's orienteerable. It's good. And they've got a decent chunk of the country, a decent chunk of that west coast there. All done. So there's the whole piece there, and that's what's done in the high resolution version. Cool. Wow. So they're making progress.
The whole world's going to be done soon.
Oh yeah. And you had some fun in the last month.
Yeah. So apologies about the rotation on this, but yeah, this is from the Ringatike 12-hour adventure race, which was earlier in the month. Pretty cool, because not often in an adventure race do we get a chance to get an orienteering map in hand, but this was a 1 to 5,000 orienteering map made by Russell Hyam of some slump terrain. out the back blocks of Taihape, well away from where any traditional orienteering is taking place. But this map was wicked. It was like, but like the slump, some elements of the slump, and there's a similar sort of map near Kinloch. I can't remember the name of it. We used it for Waitangi years ago, but like all these little knolls, little hills. This scale's 1 to 5,000. We did this at night with most of the other teams who were there. It was so much fun. And also I think it exposed a whole bunch of people who haven't tried orienteering to having an orienteering map in hand. I think there are a few blowouts, but you can expect that when you've been on 1 to 50,000 all day and you've gone straight across to this. It was a Rogaine style one. So right at the end of the race, lots of people pushed for time. So lots of time pressures, making people make mistakes too. Cool. I reckon if we can see more of these in adventure races, it would be great.
Yeah, this is so cool to see a new piece of very detailed terrain appear out of an area that I wouldn't have expected it. And it gives me hope that there must be so much more amazing areas in New Zealand that we just haven't got to use yet.
There'd be some very grunty farmland style maps out the back of Taihape. It's just there's no orienteering club there. But hey, one day, who knows?
Yeah.
Hotbed of future orienteering. And then just for comparison, the next tab I've got one of the other maps from the event. So again, apologies. You can see Jean's the one. Jean, you're obviously the one with the technical skills. This is Tom's scanning it in upside down. But this is what is dealt with in one of the adventure races. So 1 to 50,000 NZ topo. This area would actually make a very good long distance orienteering map, I think. Pretty grunty. Probably on the upper limit of how grunty you could make it, but definitely doable.
Yeah, this is cool. This looks fun.
The other great thing about this event is there was a lot of time pressure. So a lot of teams, ours included, started the day thinking, maybe we'll clear the course. So trying to get everything. And then it was a case of having to constantly revise your plans backwards as time got away from you.
Yeah.
The people who actually probably did the best job were Marquita Gelderman and Erin Swanson, who finished right near the front of the field with cunning as their main approach, skipping loads of points early, getting these high points later on, and it showed up a lot of other teams, I think, us included. We made a gamble that nearly paid off with cutting out a big section of bike, but we were just a few points short. But yeah, Marquita and Erin played it very well.
Great story. You might have also known that there was the Australian secondary schools team was announced. So a lot of us are thinking about going over there. I'm going to be heading over as a coach. And I'm looking forward to running on these maps in Tasmania again. I was last there for the World Cup some years ago, and we got to run on some terrain like this. And I loved it. I thought the terrain was amazing. And I remember getting my butt totally kicked in the middle distance, which was on a far more detailed area than this, but more of the same, but very detailed. And yeah, I really want to test myself again on this.
Tasmania is interesting for Australia because it actually has marshes and actually has some moisture in the forest. And you get that quite thick vegetation. It's almost got a more New Zealand style in places.
Yeah.
But I agree.
There are a number of places you can take photos here that you're like, oh, is that New Zealand?
Yeah.
Quite ferny. Yeah.
Yeah. I hopefully travel's not a problem. Then it'd be great if people can go across. But yeah, the great train, definitely well with the trip.
Yeah. I'm definitely just fingers crossed there aren't any issues. I think we've seen from the past week that the COVID situation is still problematic. Still seeing places get locked down and little outbreaks. So yeah, I'm hoping to get across. But yeah,
maybe next month we could have a bit more of a detailed chat about some of Australian terrain.
Yeah, there'll definitely be people interested to hear more about this terrain as we get closer to sending everyone across. This is another example the terrain. Again, you've got these marshes going up the valleys, and a lot of cliffs and boulders on the hillsides, and some quite big slopes, which is really cool and really quite runnable as well. So it's an absolute treat, and we're looking forward to it.
Nice. Tell us about Queen's birthday.
Yeah, Queen's birthday. So my first time orienteering in ages, and boy, was I rusty. This is the long distance. This is my route plotted onto the course. This was the start. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. I remember just being so stoked to just find the flags, because it was very intense. First time, number of contours, but I think when you're so aware of your inadequacies, you're actually very vigilant, and your navigation is actually quite good. So it was very interesting.
What happened on 4? I've seen that trace. What happened down the bottom there?
Yeah, I think I lost contact about 200 meters before the control. I didn't lose too much time, but yeah, once I got 3 and I started running on these trails on the way to 4, my confidence goes up and my concentration goes down. And I just lost contact somewhere in here, and took a minute to go slow and pull myself.
Did you actually have to relocate, or
I did. Yeah, I had to relocate, kind of where my cursor is here, in the clearings, which was very dodgy because the edges of the clearings are not super distinct. And then I was so flustered that I actually overran it. Yes, I relocated about here and then came back.
What would you do differently next time on that leg?
Yeah, I think if I was to do this again differently, I would have probably tried to stay on the trail for longer and just come in more at an intentional angle, and not expose myself to the risk that I did, trying to just shave off a little bit of distance without going on the trail.
I think that's an important point, because where did the error in judgment occur on this leg? It didn't occur where the mistake happened. It occurred a long way beforehand.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. I think the error, I mean, it seems to be here where I've left the trail, but it is even before then, because it was very much a psychological error. I was losing concentration and the alarm bells never went off.
So interesting takeaway. Yeah. We often focus on the control circle because that's where we perceive we lost the time, but often the error happens a long way beforehand. And like you've rightly identified, your problem with this leg was more of a psychological one of being excited and going fast. It wasn't a problem with reading the detail into the control.
Yeah, and with 5 as well, I've just left for number 5 in a terrible direction because I'm so flustered.
So the error for 5 probably happened middle of the lead to 4.
Yeah, pretty much just part of the inevitable series of events. Yeah, that's right. Nice. So that was all fun.
Who took the wins in men's down there?
Matt Ogden won both. Lizzie won the long distance, and Tessa Ramsden won the middle distance, which was cool. Good to see. Yeah, someone else at the top.
Do you have another map? Any other maps from?
Yeah, so here's the middle, very similar terrain, but again, you can see this middle distance course setting style with a lot of change in direction, a lot of quick thinking required, and I had a few moments of just personal satisfaction, personal glory, where I was very concentrated and very smooth and simplifying a lot, but simplifying well. And that was a little glimmer for me that this is the challenge of middle distance, this highly simplified but risk managed approach to navigating at speed. And I did it periodically throughout the course.
Nice. Well done.
So
good that you're back.
I'm motivated to train a little bit more specifically for middle distance, because I haven't really focused on that. I've really focused on my strength of long distance and just doubled down on that. But I've got some new motivation to try again at middle distance and see if I can up the speed and refine the simplification.
Nice. All right, great. Another record for another month. So it was, I guess, to wrap, we have heard some advice on how to think about setting a course, especially a middle distance course. We've got some advice for different steps in the process, also how to set a training session and a bit of a how-to so you can do one yourself. With that in mind, Jean, for this coming month, what are you thinking of setting for a training exercise for yourself?
Yeah, I am looking at getting out into some of the sand dune maps because, of course, I'm here in Wellington, so we're going to head up to Palmerston North to some of the sand dune maps there. And I'm looking forward to getting into some control picking type exercises and getting my brain used to the very quick interpretation of a lot of detail. I really feel that is undertrained at the moment. So I'm looking forward to getting just a lot of control points done, a lot of changing direction, and a lot of contour interpretation.
Awesome, cool. So good practical thing maybe other people could try if they were interested and want to have a go at setting at home. Or a reminder as well, check on the ONZ website on the coaching framework. There's a whole bunch of resources up there which are really valuable for explaining some of these concepts, giving some examples of how you can train them, all put together pretty recently and tied into the overall framework. So worth checking out. All right, should we leave it there for this month, Jean?
Yep, we will. Stay well, Tom.
Yep, you too. Catch you later.
If you liked the show, please support it by sharing this podcast with one person who would benefit from it. The best place to find more content like this is at genebeverage.nz, where you can find years of training blogs, race reports, podcasts, and coaching videos. If you don't want to miss future episodes, I recommend subscribing to my newsletter by visiting genebeverage.nz or by following on social media, Perfect Flow on Facebook and Gene Beverage on Instagram. For Q&A, send messages to nav@perfectflow.nz.